resided in Laconia his entire life, with the exception of his years in education and when serving in the military. He lived at 7 Edward Street and later 35 Spruce Street. He purchased the historic 252 Pleasant Street in the mid-1960s. Warren has been a Laconia resident for 85 years. Whereas Warren received his education in New Hampshire, attending Academy Street School in Laconia, Cardigan Mountain School in Canaan, Kimball Union Academy in Meriden, and graduating from Dartmouth College in Hanover in 1959. And whereas Warren served active duty in the United States Army from 1960 to 1981, including service with the 173rd Airborne Brigade and the 82nd Airborne Division, retiring as an infantry major and having been awarded 2 bronze medals for his heroic service in Vietnam. And whereas returning to Laconia in 1981, Warren immediately became a highly active member of the Laconia Historical Society and then the Laconia Historical and Museum Society, serving as president for 1 term and holding the position of treasurer for 36 years. And whereas Warren has compiled and published 4 books on Laconia history, helped edit 3 others, and since 1990 has written the weekly Our Yesterdays column and history pages appearing in The Citizen and beginning in 2016, the Laconia Daily Sun. And whereas Warren Hughes continues to serve as an active member of the Laconia Historical and Museum Society, tirelessly sharing its mission every day and everything he does, writing, speaking, and conversing about the history of downtown, Lakeport, and the Weirs, and staunchly striving to ensure that Laconia's rich history is accurately and comprehensively documented. We therefore honor this remarkable gentleman and historian for his 40 plus years of service and dedication to an organization he has nurtured almost from its infancy to where it is today, and for the countless historical facts of Laconia he has researched, recorded, and shared with the Lakes region and beyond. Now, therefore, let it hereby be known to all citizens of the city of Laconia that I, Andrew J. Hosmer, Mayor of the city of Laconia, do hereby proclaim June 17th, 2022 as Warren D. Hughes Day.
Doesn't seem like all that long.
Congratulations.
Item number 7 on our agenda. Item number 7A, which is the acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. Minutes of the regular city council meeting of May 23rd, 2022 were distributed to the city council on May 27th, 2022. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Item number 7B, which is the city council budget meeting minutes of May 16th, 2022. Minutes of the city council budget meeting of May 16th, 2022 were distributed to the city council on May 27th, 2022, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. On item 7C, which is city council budget meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2022. These minutes were distributed to the council on May 27th, 2022, and with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. This takes us right along to number 9, which is citizen comments for matters not on the agenda. If you're here this evening in the chamber, or if you're online and would like to speak to a matter that is not on tonight's agenda, now would be the appropriate time. Come right up if you've got something.
I do.
Well, welcome.
Hi.
Step right up to the mic and introduce yourself and
Okay. My name is Richard Mayu. I live at 425 Lakeside Ave, and I own Aqua Marina at 95 Centenary. And I have a few pictures here I'd like to share. Then you'll ask me why I'm giving you these pictures. Oops, wrong ones. Hold on. Where do I start?
Hand them off to the clerk.
Here we go.
Yes.
The reason I'm here is because I have 6 children, 16 grandchildren. And as you go through the pictures, you will see some of my grandchildren. And I have a great concern about the speed limit on my street, Centenary Ave. I would like to have it lowered to 15 miles an hour. And I would like something done at the intersection of Centenary, Scenic, and Lakeside. It's a T. And we have a crosswalk there that allows our people to go from the marina to my parking lot. As you know, this marina we've been actively working at it. It's a family business. Myself and my wife, my lovely wife, 52 years. We work at it daily. My children work at it daily. And I have little ones ranging in size from 3 months all the way up to 20 as of 2 days ago. And these children, not only mine, but others that play in the marina, at the swimming pool, there's an open door, and they run out into the street. And of course, the parents chase them. But when these motorcycles are going 50 miles an hour, pulling wheelies and donuts in the street, one of these days, someone's going to get killed. And I don't want them to be one of my children or my grandchildren or anyone else's children. It's serious and it's constant. I have notified the police. I have notified everyone. And I have spoken to Bruce. I don't know who he is. If he's here, please raise your hand. There he is, that gentleman. And he said he would speak up on this issue today. We have a beach bar there, and people come out and they're not really paying attention. And if somebody's going 50 miles an hour, which they do, somebody's going to get killed. And I need the speed limit reduced. I need something done at the intersection. I had spoken numerous times on this subject. I spoke to, when Paul Monahan was at the DPW, he indicated that he would put some signs up for me saying this is a crosswalk, et cetera. I don't know if that's enough. I'm open to suggestions. I need this done. And
Mr. Mayor, can you
So-
tell me what's the current speed limit there?
well, we're not sure. It's, I believe it's 25, but nobody adheres to that.
Is anybody enforcing that speed limit from the city?
Well, I've spoken to the police department numerous times. They come and they say, get it lowered. And I says, well, can you do that? They says, no, we don't have any jurisdiction on that, but you folks do. So that's why I'm here. And it's not being enforced. And I've also asked if the police wouldn't mind having a police car or anyone there in my parking lot. They can sit there all day long if they want, or all night, and try to lower the speed. As you or may not know, we had an accident just a day or so ago. A woman lost control of the bike, hit the stone wall in my parking lot, and totaled her bike. The year before, 2 people got in an accident, hit a woman broadside on a bike in front of our home. And she went up, we have it on video, she went up 35 feet in the air, landed on her head. The other gentleman, I believe he broke his leg, it was about this big, and swollen. Years before, there was one person going 120 miles an hour. He lost his head and limbs. And I guess prior to that, there was a gentleman that hit a car head on and died. So the speed limit has to be lowered. There has to be something done. And I wish you folks would do something about it. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
thanks, Mr. Mayor. Bruce, you have something to add?
We've spoken 2 or 3 times. I've asked the police department to do a traffic survey. They have their equipment up on a pole there checking quantity of vehicles and speeds of vehicles. I'm supposed to meet with the chief sometime later this week to talk about enforcement actions. As I said to Dick earlier today, setting the speed limit at 15 isn't going to solve a problem if people ignore it. So as much as anything, we need to worry about enforcement. We, 2 or 3 years ago, created a traffic unit. You may recall a 2-person traffic unit, and I'm hoping to encourage the chief to use that unit to increase enforcement. We can't be everywhere at once, but the gentleman and his neighbors deserve better than having people doing 50 miles an hour on Centenary Ave.
Fair enough.
And so I guess the only point I'm trying to make is I am, and I think he understands, I am trying to work towards that. We certainly can discuss. I spoke to the city manager last week and asked him to look into whether in fact the council had the authority or if there was any statutory provisions that might prohibit us from dropping below 25 miles an hour. And there may be, again, we can ask the manager in a moment. But I want to reiterate, without enforcement, it doesn't matter what you set the speed limit at.
That's great. Mr. Mayor, it sounds like it's well in hand as far as the assessment being done.
I'm sorry.
It sounds like it's well in hand to the extent that the
Yes, I
assessment.
just wanted to interject one thing.
Sure.
The police the personnel I spoke to, they said, if you do lower it, then if they're speeding, we can give them a ticket. If it's 25, as we all know, we always go 30. If it's 35, we'll go 40. We always go 5 miles over the speed limit. But if it's at 15 and they go 20, okay. But if it's whatever it is, 30 or 35, they're gonna go 40. And that's my point. So the police did say if they're speeding, they will give them a ticket.
Thanks. Please stay in contact with Councilor Cheney and we'll be taking a look at this in the coming weeks. Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else would like to speak to a matter not on the agenda? Anybody online? Okay. Let's move on to item number 13 under public hearings. 13A, which is a petition to lay out a Class 5 highway, Cottonwood Avenue Cul-De-Sac. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the May 12th, 2022 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall offices, SAU number 30, Laconia Community Center, and the Laconia Public Library on May 11th, 2022. Notice of the public hearing was mailed on May 3rd, 2022 to owners of the property over which the cul-de-sac runs, as well as any other property owners on Cottonwood Avenue. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:16 p.m. And if there's anyone online or in the chamber who would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome, Councilor Leahy.
How are you?
Well, how are you?
Good. Before I get on this topic, I want to say that I went into the Ed Angler Memorial and everyone did a great job. That was really a nice event. But from beginning to end, everybody really spoke well of it, and that was very deserving. The issue before you this evening is actually quite narrow and quite limited. If you recall, when we were on the site visit, Laura, town council, city council, indicated that the court had already ruled that the Cottonwood Ave cul-de-sac had already been dedicated and remained dedicated. So the issue that's, the very narrow issue that's left before the council is simply the other half of the process that makes a street a city street, and that is the city takes on the responsibility for plowing and maintenance. That's the only thing that's left. I'm a lifelong resident of that street, born there, 3 years out, away to school, and then I've owned it since and was there in 1987. So I've been there 60 years. As you know, this case has been in litigation, and there's been a number of people who have tried to offer opinions and so forth about what happened back in 1987 that created this cul-de-sac and why. There's really only one person that was identified, and that was Howard Chandler, who was the executive director of the Taylor community for well over 20 years. And during this period of time, he was the point person for the submission of the application for subdivision approval. He shepherded it all the way through. When Steve Nix filed this petition originally, I think I shared with all of you a copy of the affidavit that Howard Chandler had prepared for that litigation, and it is very descriptive, very complete, and explains the whole process. We took a view, but for very brief background, that area, when I was a kid, up on at the end of the road, was just a big round dirt place. And then beyond that is where the city's water sewer line came through from Lakeport. And as I remember, it was kind of, you notice how there was drop offs, and it was kind of built up, and you could walk along it and walk to Lakeport and so forth. And a good chunk of that property and a good piece beyond was owned by Paul Norman and Claude Bing Plummer. And they wanted to sell the property to Taylor Home, but then they wanted Taylor Home to take the responsibility of subdividing off that 2-lot subdivision that you saw today on the view. So I told you it was as you face the cul-de-sac, the Plummer house to the left and the Norman house to the right. And now Taylor owns on the left, and Nancy Edelson is on the right. And if you remember, and this is important, if you remember from the Chandler affidavit, he said the city saw an opportunity. The city planning board saw an opportunity. And what was it? It was a non-conforming street, because a street that long with no outlet should have a cul-de-sac at the end of it. That was the requirement then. It's the requirement now. And so Chandler goes on to explain in his affidavit how they created the plan, the subdivision plan. They showed the lots. The lots got sold. What I've just described is the first step of the process, and that is dedication. And again, what Laura indicated that the court had found. What's dedication? A developer creates a plan that shows a proposed way with lots around that roadway. Once a planning board approves that plan and lots are sold, the developer's right, in this case, Taylor, their right to the roadway is lost forever. A court, they can't take it back. A court can't make it be given back. The planning board can't, the ZBA can't. There's only one party that can do that, and that's you. That's statutory. Statute says that The dedication can only be released by the legislative body, which is you. And so I'm going to just make part of the record that, because I know everybody had the Howard Chandler affidavit, but I'm going to give you that.
So Matt, I probably should have made clear
Sure.
early on. Certainly affording you as much time as you need. And likewise, whoever's here from the Taylor community will be afforded the same amount of time.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Taylor Home is saying they don't have a copy of this affidavit.
It was part of the pleading, but
So what we'd like to do is afford both sides of this issue ample opportunity to explain their position. And then if there are members of the public that would like to speak, I would encourage you to speak, but because there's quite a crowd here, we're going to try not to repeat what's already been said. So if you'd like to come in and maybe just register your opposition or your support, whatever the case may be, please let us know if you have anything additional to offer. Briefly, please do so. Okay, but we'll try to afford the first two speakers more time.
obviously the subdivision application was subject to the subdivision regulations. Those regulations incorporate the city ordinances and regulations where applicable. The one that existed then and exists now that was applicable is 197.8. Cul-de-sacs. Streets designed to have one end permanently closed. Cul-de-sac shall be provided to the closed end with a turnaround roadway having a minimum radius for the outside curve of at least 60 feet. So radius is what? A circle. And it's got to be,
Circumference, right,
it's got it from the center to the outside has to be 60 feet. Get in trouble with just for the record. And as Chandler said, we didn't want anything to do with it in his affidavit. We didn't want anything to do with it. We wanted to close our gate and have no traffic up there or anything. So that's why it was important on the view to see the gated road. The planning board in 1987 required the cul-de-sac because that was not going to be a public road. It was going to be gated, as it is now and has been since 1987. That's why that ordinance provision was applicable to this plan. Be careful. Laura used the phrase private road out at the site visit. I think what she meant by that is it hadn't been accepted. Because it's definitely been dedicated to public use, which means the public can use it. You notice the sign didn't say no trespassing. It said no city services because the city has yet to accept it for purposes of being on the hook for plowing and so forth. In the litigation, we attempted as part of the litigation to simply say there was an implied acceptance by the city because they, I can testify to that, did by way of affidavit, plowed and maintained that road for the whole time I've lived on that, since it's been created that at that cul-de-sac. So there's absolutely no question about that. So dedication can exist without acceptance. That's exactly what's going on today. And I can tell you, the public, that cul-de-sac, there is not a day when there's not a FedEx truck, a UPS truck, and you're going to hear this from other people. Well, the new one now, Amazon, cable company trucks, trucks pulling large trailers, landscapers pulling their equipment, all using that cul-de-sac. The other morning, I don't think it was a run, it may have been showing a new hire, the route or whatever, but an ambulance went up the street, went up, came around early in the morning, didn't have its lights on or anything like that. Now that Taylor community owns 7 houses on Cottonwood and Walker Street combined, one of the biggest users of that cul-de-sac is the Taylor community. And you'll hear this from neighbors. I'm talking all day long. Backhoes, lawnmowers, trucks. Today, while I'm waiting to come to this meeting, big truck pulling, it looked like something either you spray on grass or fertilizer, it's a great big tank on a trailer. Goes up to the top of the street, turns around on the cul-de-sac. That's what it's there for. That's why it should be there on a street of that size with that many people. I think you asked about the number of houses. I think Steve Nix told me 33 houses combined on the 2 streets. I'm sorry. That was in Taylor's response. I think they said there were 33 houses combined on the 2 streets.
Matt, just a quick question. I'm
Sure.
sorry to interrupt. You got me thinking when you said the ambulance, if the cul-de-sac weren't there and a fire engine were to go up there, how do you get a fire engine out of there?
I think it's a 3-point, it would be a 3-point turn. Now, let me say this. We're not talking about that tonight. That's, I don't think is on the agenda. I appreciate your question, but how would that work? They would have to drive nearly onto the Edelson property, somehow back up, and then turn around and go out. When the new cable company came to town, and it's, those monstrous trucks pulling the big trailer with the big roll of wire. I mean, there's no way, because that articulates, where the trailer is. That would be a tough one. That would be a tough one. So that's really it. What we're asking is that the city agree to do what it did from 1987 to 2019. Plow it and occasional repairs. They plow it now anyway. They have to. I mean, they're not going to pick up their plow and drive over the snow. It's easier for them they push it around and then the Taylor vehicle comes up and cleans up the property that they own. That's really all that happens. So again, the issue is limited. And I request that the council vote to accept responsibility for maintenance of that cul-de-sac.
Thanks, Matt.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Please do. You just make sure to introduce yourself to our clerk and
Absolutely. My name's Stephen Nix. I represent Nancy Edelson. And I will do my best not to repeat what Matt has already said so we can keep this thing moving along. But it's pretty clear that, well, let me say this. The litigation regarding this road started from planning board appeal. And then it went into issues regarding who has rights to the cul-de-sac. That litigation did not involve a petition to lay out the highway. So what happened in that litigation, but for the fact that the court has determined that there was a dedication, is not involved in that lawsuit. This is a statutory process. That's the reason we brought it as a layout, because it is a statutory process. Another reason that we brought this as a petition to lay out versus a request for acceptance, those are the two ways we could have done this, is that under the statutory layout process, the Supreme Court over the years has created a list of tests that the city council can look to. And that test doesn't exist in a perfect form under the acceptance law. So that's one reason why we brought it. So we'd have a clear test. What is a little different about this process is the layout process is actually an eminent domain proceedings where a party can come forward and ask the city council to create a highway through the takings process. However, in this case, the takings you don't have to go through the takings process because the Taylor home has already dedicated this. So we move right to the second step, which is there a does the public interest justify taking the land without the owner's consent? Well, there is no taking of the land because the owner has already consented to it. And that's where we get into the tests for the occasion for layout. And I outlined those in my memorandum and I won't read them to you, but generally it talks about the road system, the public need. In this case, there's 30 houses. Matt had it 33, but there's 30 houses from Walker Street up. I did include a count in here of the assessed value. This is in 2020, which is at the time I did this was the best information I had. Was $6,775,000 worth of assessed value from Walker Street up. So on a yearly basis, 2 years ago, the tax base that comes out of that is approximately $134,000 per year. So one of the tests that the council needs to look at is what's the cost to the community? And we would suggest that at $134,000 per year, it's actually a positive in that I doubt that DPW is going to spend that much plowing and maintaining that cul-de-sac on a year-to-year basis. I won't get into all the trucks and all that. I'll let the people who live in the neighborhood testify as to that. The Taylor home filed an objection. And they make some legal arguments regarding the prior litigation that the city had taken no position on certain summary judgment motions, but those are irrelevant to this proceeding. There's nothing in the law that says that the city cannot lay the highway out under the statute. The Taylor home also is arguing that under code 197.1 that the DPW and the planning board are required to submit input, but that's limited to acceptance, and that's not what we're here for. We're here for the statutory layout procedure. So that argument does not apply. Matt talked about 197.8, that the city's code requires a cul-de-sac. There's been no waiver of that code. That's not in zoning. Well, it is in the subdivision regulations, but it's also a code that the city council had adopted. The court's underlying finding regarding implied acceptance is irrelevant to this case. And I talked about the difference between acceptance and statutory layout. We're here for statutory layout. So whatever the court did regarding implied acceptance is irrelevant to the city council's analysis. The court did find that the Superior Court did find that the plan, which I've put here, dedicated the cul-de-sac, and Taylor is bound by that decision. At this point, they did not file the required motion for reconsideration, so they've waived under the court rules. They've waived that argument. Their claim for damage, Taylor's claim for damages, also doesn't apply, and I've cited in my memorandum. There's several cases that indicate that once a party dedicates the property, they waive their damages. I think with that, I will let the public and others speak.
Thanks,
You.
Steve.
Any questions? Thank you very
None,
much.
thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Chris Cole. I'm a lawyer at Sheehan Finney Bass and Green in Manchester and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I represent the Taylor community and have throughout the litigation, throughout the planning board proceeding that caused the litigation. We've already submitted a lengthy memorandum. I will tell you that the matters that Mr. Nix says are irrelevant to your consideration are altogether relevant to your consideration because they bear on public need. In our view, the city has already declined essentially to take this property. Howard Chandler made an offer of dedication. It is true, but if you go and read the exhibits 2 and 3 in the, forgive me, but overly voluminous papers that we gave you, you'll see that the planning board didn't list that as a condition and didn't require dedication. So it comes to pass that 35 years goes by and it's still not accepted after all of this time. In our view, the planning board approvals then in 1987 did not require or need Taylor's dedication of the cul-de-sac. In our view, your public works director has already concluded that there's no public need for this property. And we'll come back to public need in a few minutes.
I'm going to stop you right there,
Sure.
Counselor. Which public works director was that?
Mr. Anderson, he carried out a street study. It's exhibits 5, 7, 9, and 10, I believe, in this packet that did an analysis of the private streets that the city was doing maintenance on. And this cul-de-sac, a private street that they were doing maintenance on, was one of dozens of such properties. And he brought forward the issue of whether or not the council needed to accept any of those. I believe he did that in May 2019. And this property was not one of them. The Cottonwood Avenue cul-de-sac was not one. It isn't that Wes Anderson didn't know about it. He did. He did an analysis of it. He concluded that it was private. He concluded that the planning board didn't require dedication. He went through the city's attorneys, whoever they were, and got buy-in for that. And that's what he concluded. This is an exhibit. I can dig it out for you, but it's in one of your exhibits at page 7. I think it's exhibit 5. So the issue today, Mr. Leahy leaves off, he tells you about the head of the dog, maybe its snout, and he leaves off the entire body and tail. Because the issue here is whether or not there is a public need to accept this as it is now. Now, we got a lot of talk about the change in the plan that was part of the city or the Taylor application in 2019. That's not what we're talking about here today. You're right. So any questions about how it would be bad to change the cul-de-sac, how it would impair drainage to the properties, how it would be inconsistent with the code to not have a cul-de-sac there, that's what's irrelevant tonight. That's what's irrelevant tonight. Because what you're asked to do is this question: is there a public need? An occasion is what lawyers have to have a different word for everything, but an occasion means a compelling public need to take this property from a private landowner. And to do that job, you balance two things. You balance whatever that public need is against the private property rights of the landowner. So we have this bundle of rights to use, develop private property. That's what Taylor has. And it may well want to change that, the configuration of that property someday, against what is the cul-de-sac now? And why would you take it under your wing and accept or really seize the property from the property owner? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So Counselor, are you just clearing up what was the city failed to do, you say 35 or 37 years ago? Is this just to sort of tie up a loose end here, or do you have an end game as to what you'd like to do with the property?
I don't know what Taylor's end game is. They made an application in the planning board to put a hammerhead design. Okay, I'm happy to tell you about it, to put in a hammerhead design. And lo and behold, every meaningful department is asked about it. Fire, police, public works, and who am I missing? Planning. Thank you. And public works sends a sheet in, says,
But nobody does this. I'm sorry to interrupt, but nobody does this
Okay.
just as an exercise, do they? Or is there no one would spend the type of money it would take to hire an attorney just to work on this or to lay out additional plans? I mean, just as an exercise, wouldn't it be done with a specific goal in mind? Seemed like it would be a prudent use of any funds. they
sure,
may
the
have
goal, the
access
goal
to.
is to put in two, I believe, is to put in two new cottages eventually. Down near where you all saw the gate, the breakaway gate. So not up there, but sort of in the woods in the other area. Again, that is a planning board thing in its jurisdiction. If you want to talk about it, I can tell you that all of those city departments said, okay. In fact, they said the hammerhead works for us. Wes Anderson's got some pretty big trucks. It works for them to turn around.
Okay.
It works for police.
I'm sorry to
But- No,
derail you there a
you
little
don't
bit,
have
but
to,
go ahead. Go
you
right
don't
ahead.
have to apologize. What's happening here is the layout petition's purpose is really twofold. And that is to impede Taylor from using its property rights, to impede Taylor from developing the property, and to reverse the Superior Court decision on ownership. That's not a proper purpose under the law. And Mr. Nix, I think, touched on, maybe Matt touched on them as well, that the case law gives you 8 factors to talk about. And I'm going to run through them. I'm going to try to be quick about it. But the case law gives you 8 factors to consider. It gives you these 8 factors to make sure that not just this body, but every municipality, municipal governing body in the state takes into account the reality of what is the public benefit as against the private property owner's rights. So the first of these factors is integration within the existing road system. This is a cul-de-sac. It interconnects with no other street than Cottonwood Avenue. And if you want to reach for it, Walker. You're right. It's 30 homes that are on this. 11 people signed the petition. I assume there are more here than that 11, but that is the only thing that this is going to service. Taking the cul-de-sac to be city property would literally do nothing to achieve integration within an existing roadway. Factor 2, ease of existing traffic flow. All of your departments have said traffic flow will be unimpeded and they can get all their trucks to work. At most, it provides a turnaround for vehicles in the street on which every single homeowner has a driveway and a limited need to turn around that we think is sporadic at best, and that the court found was sporadic at best. A street in which planning, public works, and fire all approved the amended site plan. You understand when they did that, what they were saying to the planning board was nothing about this new design will hinder our carrying out of our public duties to the city. Nothing about the new design will hinder our public duties. So it's the same with this. It's exactly the same. There's no net benefit to the city or to the residents. Improvements to the convenience of travel. We're talking about a 3-point turn at most. Let's be candid here. We're talking about a 3-point turn instead of a turnaround. Okay, that's the public benefit to seize somebody's property. I don't think so. Facilitation of the transportation of existing school children. Petitioners point to a single child who's picked up by a school bus during the week. The ownership of the property, Taylor or the taxpayers, will make literally no difference to the school bus or the facilitation of that transportation or anything else. Again, the departments have said it won't hinder us. Improved accessibility, items 5 and 6, improved accessibility to the business district and employment centers, and improved accessibility for fire, emergency, and police services. And you know what I'm going to say. As to fire, police, and other services, no change. Private ownership is the same. There's no public need. Improved accessibility to the business district, it's exactly the same. You go up, you turn around, you go down Cottonwood, you take that right on Walker, you come down to Union, and you're there. The cul-de-sac, hammerhead, whatever it is, will make no difference to that. Zero difference to that. There's no public benefit associated with it. The benefit to a significant, item 7, a benefit to a significant proportion versus a small fraction of town tax base or year-round residents. I don't want to poke anybody in the eye here. I understand it's important to these folks, and my mother raised me at least adequately, but nothing will change for anybody in the city. This is there to say, are other city taxpayers going to inure some benefit by the taking of Taylor's private property? And the answer is no, they won't. The answer is they won't.
Hold on one second. Counselor Littman.
Yes, sir.
So I've heard you go through a number of different things and you conclude the answer is no. I think we're here to make a judgment around the public need and benefit.
I understand that.
Is that wrong?
No, I think you're here to do it. And I'm here to tell you that there isn't any. It's respectfully, sir. That's really what the game is here.
So
And
at the end of the day, it's up to the council here to, even though a department may have said something, they do not, in the scheme of it, you would agree, they're not determinative. It's this body, if you will, is the legislative body, correct in this instance?
I'll answer yes with a caveat. To go in the face of all of your Leos, all of your first responders and your public works would suggest that as an evidentiary matter, you're wrong. If you have that public benefit. And this will get challenged in the courts, and that'll be part of our thing. And no offense to anybody, but that's just the way it'll work out. But
Would you also at least concede that we're entitled to consider all the factors, not just one by one in isolation? In other words, you've gone through a litany of each one that there's not a public need.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
And that's sort of a reductionist, if you will, analysis of it, but taken together, a different conclusion might be able to be considered.
I respectfully, and I mean that, I disagree. You can't go through 8 factors and say, oops, no, to all 8 of them, and then somehow amalgamate them or remix them into concrete that actually holds. It just doesn't. The cul-de-sac doesn't matter to any of these things. A wash should be, forgive me, Mayor, a wash should be in favor of private property ownership. And that's what we're talking about here. I'm sorry, I interrupted you both.
I think I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. Continue, please.
Okay, I'll try to conclude. I know if people want to speak. All of these factors lean either to the status quo of doing nothing, or in fact, lean strongly in favor of the landowner. And then when you put on that seesaw of what these factors are, when you put somebody's private property rights on it, then Taylor wins. The petitioners ask you to take a private property from another resident of this town to avoid the inconvenience of a 3-point turn. They ask you to overturn a decision of the court and deliver ownership to the city in a litigation where we spent 2 years deciding that the ownership was with us. The petitioners ask you to seize that property. It's not to enhance the public good or public interest. It's to serve their purposes so that nothing will change, and it'll be much more difficult for Taylor to develop the adjacent property. And that's not just outside of the bounds of what a public need is. That's just wrong.
Just, I'm glad you're going to wrap up, and I should not interrupt you.
You can interrupt me anytime you want, Mayor.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the effort you're putting in here and issues that you're raising, but when we think about fundamental fairness, and I think if you go to Howard Chandler's affidavit.
I'm happy to talk about that because I just received this. I did not know it was a part of the record.
I understand. Maybe that is ripe for another time. I don't think it's.
This is our only, I don't mean to interrupt you. This is our time. Unless you're going to give me time to look over Howard's and submit something to you and adjourn this tonight. I don't think you.
Well, I'm not sure, and being put on the spot like that, I don't really appreciate either. So hold on.
Well, Matt knew better than this, Mr. Mayor.
Wait a minute. I think.
That affidavit is exhibit A to every motion for summary judgment and objection. be
Right.
filed.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt.
And I didn't.
I hear you. So
And
so
I didn't know
hold
it was
on,
going to
hold
be
on,
part
please.
of the record
Hold
in
on,
this
please.
case. Sure.
Hold on.
They cried like this.
Hold on.
Court hearing as well.
This
gonna
is,
try it?
look, this is not a court.
There you go.
We're just average Joes sitting up here trying to figure out
There you go.
what fundamental fairness is to the people who live in this city and the taxpayers.
I
And
understand
that includes your client, don't get me wrong. On the other hand, I think doing a little analysis on the Howard Chandler and I think that it really gives us some sense of what occurred 35 years ago. And sometimes, though this is not a court, it does seem sort of form over substance here, that there was an intent that perhaps it wasn't concluded the way it should have been at the time, but we all knew what the lay of the land was. We all knew what was expected of each party. And now there seems to be just an evolution of what Taylor community would like to do. Now they go back and look at the document and say, well, I think we can sort of slide out of this and do what we want to do, because the city didn't fulfill its original obligation. And it was a technicality of sorts, very important in a court of law. But I think when you come in here, we're not judges. We're just trying to figure
Right.
out what to do on behalf of
I
the taxpayers here.
Totally,
And
totally get what you're saying.
what is at the mutual benefit of this city.
I understand,
So we
Mr.
can
Mayor.
Keep it to that. It'd be really great.
I understand what you're saying.
1 second. Go right ahead. Go.
Mr. Chandler's affidavit is dated April 2021. I don't know about any of you, but I don't remember what I read in April 2021. So I'd have to refresh. I did not know it was going to be part of the record in this case. The factors that I gave you, I didn't just make them up. They come from the Supreme Court of the state of New Hampshire, and they apply to governing bodies. They don't apply to anyone else. Those were put in place for you folks to go through. And forgive me, I think it's a solemn duty to do that. And I think once you do it, you have to vote no on the proposed resolution. I'm sorry to take so much time.
It's quite all right. Go ahead. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question for
If
you.
you don't mind, sir.
But I don't mind.
Just a quick
Mayor
question.
wanted to chase me away, I thought.
No.
So with everything you said, and I'm going to go along with what the mayor asked, the end result of all this that the Taylor home wants is to take a portion of that cul-de-sac so that their setbacks could be met to build a home. That's what the skinny is on this whole thing.
The Taylor home wants to build a hammerhead design out of the
They
cul-de-sac.
want it, they
In
need part of
order-
the cul-de-sac
in
for
order
the
to-
setbacks,
Yes,
correct?
right. They have to have the road frontage in order to put in the houses. But again, that has nothing to do with the public need for taking this cul-de-sac.
Okay, so that's another thing where you say it's private property and we're taking property and this and that. So back in 87, the Taylor home, what was the word? I don't,
Dedication.
dedicated it to the city, correct? So has anything been acted on
They
that the city didn't, that said, well, we give it back to you? Has
No.
there been any ruling by any council
No.
that said that?
There hasn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Counselor Susie, if you've got a moment, Counselor Cole, for a couple more questions from you.
Of course.
Mr. Cole, a question. You said it's a hammerhead design. So that would give them the opportunity to build whatever they wanted within that hammerhead.
I don't think whatever they wanted is right, but Counselor Susie, I think they can build a couple of cottages, which I think is what the plan was. I don't have the planning board materials in front of me. I have to dig them out and take more time, but
I'm
sorry.
just wondering because we've all heard different things, okay? And
Sure.
I'm just wondering what the plan is because I haven't seen no master plan. What's that going to do to increase traffic flow through there? Is that part of the reason?
It won't increase traffic flow at all. It's still going to be cut off from the rest of the Taylor home. The Taylor home will use the internal roads to reach those properties, not Cottonwood Avenue, the public part, or the cul-de-sac.
Right, but within the internal structure of Taylor Home, there's nothing from them making another road there to include that touches or integrates into their own road system, right?
You're really asking a civil engineer question, and I'm clueless on that, sir. I'd like to answer it, but I can't.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Counselor Genie.
This plan that's displayed here, as I understand it, that's an accepted plan. The city accepted that proposal.
City approved the site plan, right?
Right, and that site plan includes a circular whatever, I guess, I think we all
Cul-de-sac.
thought it was a
Yep.
roundabout.
Yep.
Can Taylor now say, well, we don't care what that plan said, we now want to put a hammerhead in?
No, not at all, Councilor Cheney. Taylor made a formal site plan application to amend this plan.
Yeah.
To put in the hammerhead design to the planning board. The planning board, believing that there was a question about ownership or that the city owned it.
Yeah.
Denied that. And then we appealed that, went into court, and we prevailed on this little kernel of that analysis that we owned the property.
Okay, I'm not arguing you
I
you own
understand.
the property at this point, certainly. I'm just questioning whether without some other approval, you can't put in a hammerhead in a place that's round that was accepted before,
Right, which is why this,
which I understand you put in but if the planning board refuses that.
Yep.
You're bound by what's in that plan.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the public hearing is still open for anyone here in the chamber who would like to speak.
Hi, my name
Yeah,
is,
we'll try, yeah, but 3 minutes. We'll give it to 3 minutes, but go ahead, you go.
my name
pretty
is
fun.
Nancy Edelson, and I live abutting the Taylor home at the Cul-De-Sac. I moved there just about 24 years ago, and when I moved there, this is what I had. I had a public road and a cul-de-sac. Now, if the city doesn't accept it, I don't live on a city street that I pay taxes for. And again, the traffic of turning around and hammerhead as opposed to a cul-de-sac is not nearly as safe. In the evenings, when the school buses come through in the wintertime or any other vehicle, if they have to do a 3-point turn there and it's snowing out or there's snow bankings there, or it's just dark, it's not as safe as going around a cul-de-sac with your headlights showing you everything you're seeing all the way around. So my thoughts, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Come right up. You have to raise your hand. Introduce yourself and have at it.
My name is Richard Lewis and I live at 63 Walker Street and I've lived there since August of 1991. And I only want 10% of the time that the legal representatives have used tonight. So there's just a few things I want to point out. First of all, I think the city recently established a guardrail around a portion of the right side of the cul-de-sac, which probably intersected a formally staked boundary between alleged Taylor home property and city property. I don't know who paid for that or what kind of a cost sharing agreement there might have been between the city and the Taylor home, if any. I'm not privy to that information, but there certainly was a commitment on the part of the city, all right, to do the labor and provide the materials to install that guardrail.
Okay, let's let the
All right.
gentleman who's
Thank
at the
you.
microphone
Thank
speak
you
with
for
no comments
informing me of
from
that.
the audience, please, and thank you.
And I'm not aware of any type of a traffic survey or a traffic count having been done on traffic ingressing and egressing through that cul-de-sac. If there's one that exists, I'd like to see it. If one doesn't exist, I would recommend that one be done to determine statistically instead of just empirically, okay, what kind of traffic volume and the nature of the traffic and types of vehicles that actually use the cul-de-sac. The third point is that I'm not sure what the Taylor home community's end game is with respect to future desires and impacts on the Walker Street Cottonwood neighborhood. Right. The immediate
concern, and maybe it's a distraction, regarding adding two probably independent living units in the grassy or open area there just above the cul-de-sac, is maybe one issue. If that is in their build-out plan, and I wouldn't deny them that, perhaps there is a negotiation point where instead of building two independent units, they could build one duplex unit with a smaller footprint than the total of the two independent units would have, and thereby mitigate the pressure of encroachment onto the cul-de-sac. I haven't heard anybody discuss that point. And in terms of the true end game, I think that's in one sense being played close to the vest. In the other sense, when you can see that 7 properties in our neighborhood have already been acquired, all right, and that's certainly the rights between a willing buyer and a willing seller, you know, to have that happen, okay? But I think it doesn't take much to project intent there when you look at the confinement they may be experiencing with regard to build out space remaining on the Taylor Home campus, and what expansion potential may present itself in acquiring properties not only immediately adjacent in terms of abutters on Cottonwood and Walker, and perhaps even a street or two over on the Lakeport side of that, which I don't have specific information on, but just surmising. But people on the opposite side of the street as well. And so when you look at those 7 properties that they already own, they're used for different purposes. Some are for employee housing, such as their HR staff. Others are for perhaps staging use for people that want to reside on the main campus, but there's no room up there, or they don't have suitable quarters for them now. So they stage it maybe in Bing's quarters until such time as space opens up, or they use them for rental properties. Okay, and they have their own vetting process and realtor process and so
So I'm
forth.
going to push you along just a little bit here
Yes.
right now.
Okay, I'm exceeding my 3 minutes. My apologies. Okay. So it would help the neighborhood if they would be a little more forthcoming, all right, with what their end game or their long game is, all right, for the neighborhood. All right, there is probably more that I could say, but I want to respect the constraints that you have imposed upon me. All right. And
Please
so
feel
I
free
will-
to reduce them to writing if you like, and we can get them circulated to the council as well. And if there's anything you think
all
of
right,
when you leave.
And so I
okay?
will cease my remarks at this point.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for listening. Appreciate it.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Murphy and I live at 70 Cottonwood Ave. When I bought my home, there was a cul-de-sac. I was delighted to have a cul-de-sac because I know what it does and how it affects traffic. We live in a neighborhood where there are a lot of children present, and not only children, but people that walk their dogs every day, 3 times a day, up and down that street. I have worked remotely long before it became popular with COVID, since 2007. Since I've lived at that house, I know the amount of traffic that comes up and down that street, which has increased 3-fold with Taylor Home purchasing homes and all of the work that they do on those properties. There is a lot of traffic on that street. And now to have a hammerhead where vehicles come up and have to do a 3-point turn endangers people that are walking their dogs and children that are playing in that street. So I am all for public opinion to keep the cul-de-sac. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Mike Brady, 30 Cottonwood, and I totally agree with her. We have grandkids that live with us, and people walk their dogs. We have dogs too. And the Taylor Home trucks, a lot of times, they'll just drive up, turn around and come back. And I just retired. So I see this when I'm outside on the front porch. They just drive up, come back. I'm like, what are they doing? It's like crazy. The traffic is totally increased a lot on that street. But for, evening hours, if you have people doing 3-point turns around there, it's going to create a lot more noise. It's a quiet neighborhood. That's what we all love about that neighborhood. It's nice and quiet. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, my name is Daniel Schroeder. Oh, excuse me. I live
Thank
at
you.
1 Cottonwood Ave. When my wife and I bought our house in 2008, we bought it because of the cul-de-sac. I'm one of those people that walk my dog at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock at night. And when you mentioned about the fire engines coming through, I'm out there cleaning the fire hydrant, but they go up and check them. I've been there when ambulances have been, when the police go. A 3-point turn is going to add much more. And if a hammerhead won't change anything, why change the circle? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And I'm with keeping it the same.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'm Jim Arsenault. I reside at 71 Cottonwood Avenue, right next to Nancy, right across from Cat. Been there for over 25 years. I was a member of the Board of Trustees for the Taylor Home for 9 years, to include being chairman of the board, as well as chair of their finance committee, and I wholeheartedly support their mission. However, in this case, I think that they're wrong. I fully support maintenance of what has been the status quo and would encourage the council to formally complete the process to maintain the cul-de-sac the way it has been, what the city has paid for in terms of paving, plowing, et cetera, over the course of time. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Artie, is anybody online raise their hand? Okay. Are we connected to the internet? Okay. Come right up. We rough up Glenn much worse, I'm just saying.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. Excuse me, I got a bug in my throat. My name is Carl Wrights. I'm a resident of 56 Cottonwood Avenue and a resident there for 22 years now. And yeah, I like to watch all those dogs and people going back and forth, much more so than vehicular traffic. I see a hammerhead as being in position to traffic movement. Occasionally, we have parties that have 50 people and cars parked both ways on each side of the street. When the party's over and people leave, they all have to go which direction they're facing, because I don't have a driveway for 60 people. So
you throw a good party though, huh?
Yeah. The hammerhead would require a vehicle to go into it to begin the 3-point turn, yes? While that's happening, no other vehicle can enter that neck. Is that true? So if there were an emergency vehicle or coming up, or if there was someone that had to get out in an emergency, and there are 4 people in front of him that have to do this jockeying, it's terrible. I vote in favor of maintaining what the city voted in respect correctly on years and years ago.
Thanks, Carl. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Babotas, native son of Laconia. And I live at 38 Walker Street, which is down toward the bottom. Our stone wall in our backyard abuts to Taylor property. Before the COVID years, when we get a letter every, I don't know, fall or summer, inviting us to go to a little get together at Taylor. And the people, we were called incorporators. And we would go, they'd have finger foods and they'd give us some swag, Taylor bags or whatever. It seems like we're going to be incorporated into Taylor because I'm another one of the people that have seen the activity of Taylor, especially the landscaping and the construction and everything else. And I have spoken several times with Michael Flaherty, who is the director there. And he even came over to my house last year and we sat in the backyard, and talked about things. But basically this cul-de-sac is just a tip of the iceberg. And basically Taylor needs to stop being the 600-pound gorilla in the neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Howdy. My name is Michael Bro. I live at 17 Cottonwood Avenue. I don't know the exact year we've moved there, but I feel like it was 20 years anyway. I'm newly retired. I do nothing. Well, I do a lot more than
Not in front of your wife, yeah, right?
then
Just
I
in the
do
back row.
more than just sit in my living room and watch passersby. But that's something that I take note of. And in the last while, since the purchasing of all the homes in the neighborhood, I've noticed increased traffic as well. I echo a lot of the people's comments and opinions and viewpoints. I support leaving things the way that they are. And can't we all just get along? I mean, what the hell? Really? That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Michael. Come on up.
Hey, good evening. My name is Sean Cochran. I'm at 53 Walker Street, sorry. I've been here for about 11 years and I am one of those people that's walking the dogs every morning. I'm the one that, like Miss Duncan back there, that has raised their kids on the street. And Taylor Home's been great. There's nothing bad about them at all. What really stuck in my head tonight was that the lawyers talked about the balance and the needs of the public versus private ownership. I think it's been very clear today, the public's support. Not that it's around keeping the way it was, because I don't, necessarily believe in that, but that what they're wanting to do is not in the best interest of all these homeowners in these 30 houses. Well, 22 if you take away them. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Anybody else? Welcome.
Hi, Mayor.
How are you?
Good. My name is Gary Rivas. I live on 49 Cottonwood Ave, and I am the family with little kids. So I do see heavy traffic ever since 2 years ago, since the Taylor, which I do love the Taylor, the missions and stuff like that. So I totally support them. But yeah, I see danger when my little one, 5, 12, and 14 play on the streets, play basketball. We have a basketball hoop right on the street. Not saying it's the Taylor's fault, but they crashed our basketball hoop, which they repaid us to build another one, but that's another incident that we had. So just want to bring it on record that I'm for the Cul-De-Sac.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in tonight. Come right up. Oh, wait, let's see if there's anybody else want to. Not really, no. We have a heavy agenda and I would encourage you to put it in an email or reduce it to writing any way you like and send it along. Okay, come right up. I see your hand. Welcome.
Good evening. How are we? I didn't wear my bullseye shirt on the back of my here because I represent Taylor. I figure I should wear it here. There's been a lot of commentary from the abutters, so I thought I would share some of the commentary from the leadership at Taylor. My name is Kirk Beswick. I am the Vice President of Facilities. I actually was part of this when we had this first conversation relative to a hammerhead. But I want to clear up a few things because I know there's a lot of emotions here today. But I want to just kind of go over a few things that I think the council should know. What is ownership of 7 houses over there now, we pay more taxes than all of the folks represented here together. We are invested in the community. We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into these homes, and the increased traffic is us maintaining the property that we've bought at a higher level than what was maintained there previously. In fact, one of the previous speakers here tonight came to us and approached us about buying their home. In fact, all the homes we bought from that place, from both Walker and Cottonwood, people came to us first and asked us to purchase their home. We have not solicited anybody. We haven't knocked on any doors. People have approached us about selling us their homes, mostly because we're a good neighbor. I plow for Taylor. I do landscaping with my guys when I need to, and I can say that we also help maintain Cottonwood and Walker when the snow gets too deep for the neighbors over there. You know, we do a lot of good things. In fact, most of the folks here that are talking about walking their dogs walk onto our property. As a way of being friendly to those folks, we have doggy poopy bags that we provide for all the neighbors so that while they're walking around, we take care of it. We maintain the cul-de-sac. In fact, Taylor community, if you go back far enough, we paid to install that cul-de-sac because it was part of the agreement of that particular subdivision. So let's not lose in this conversation the fact that Taylor community is a good neighbor. What's really at stake here and what you need to decide is property rights for someone like Taylor, who's vested, been here since 1910 as a good neighbor, or the folks here that are concerned about the increased traffic and how the traffic will flow once we, you know, if we get to the point where we build a hammerhead. We've already demonstrated, Chris showed, and we talked about it, the hammerhead wouldn't affect traffic flow, wouldn't affect the ability to walk dogs. I think what's at stake here is the ownership of the property, and do we have the right to do something with the ownership that the court has already stated as ours? Thank you.
Appreciate your time, and certainly, I don't think there's anyone here who believes that the Taylor community is not a good neighbor within the city. So, I mean, though we may have some questions about where we're going to land on this decision, it's not because we are concerned about the Taylor community's role in this city. Good neighbors, good people, great mission. We're just trying to figure out and balance this as best we can. Anyway, come right up.
Hi.
Hi.
Is Erica Duncan. I live at 72 Walker Street, which I know is not the exact road, but I'm connected to the road. And I too share the same concerns of obviously children's safety, turnaround vehicles, etc. That's been beaten down, I think, at this point. But I just wanted to make a comment. I was trying to keep my mouth shut and play nice and just be supportive. And I will give the Taylor home credit in the fact that the properties do look fairly nice. But the comment about not soliciting and not, pushing neighbors to sell to them, I have to stand up and say that that is not 100% accurate, because I personally experienced an issue with them last year in which I have a water line that runs under my property. It runs from the Taylor home property under neighborhood. I have a random drain pipe that nobody knew existed until I brought it to the attention. I bought my house 15 years ago, not knowing anything about what apparently turned out to be a gentleman's agreement. The Taylor home was wonderful and came and took a look at it, I will say, and to kind of see if it was theirs and what could be done. Long story short, and cutting to the chase, it was thousands and thousands of dollars in repair, but I took it upon myself to pay for that because I was told that if they repaired it, they got first dibs on buying my house when I sold it in the future. So with that said, I would just like to question, the end game again, and just make sure that we're considering the neighborhood and what we all bought into. So
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, anyone online? All right, so I'd like to conclude the public hearing at 8:21 p.m. I will let folks who are here right now know that this item will be tabled when we get to it in unfinished business for a 2-week period for the council to study the materials that they have. Never fails. So if you're waiting around, this will be tabled. We will not be taking any action on it until at earliest 2 weeks from tonight, okay? So thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
If the council wanted to review the criteria that the Taylor attorney had brought to you from the Supreme Court decision, that was distributed to all of you on May 25th in an email. So, and that came from our legal counsel for points for you to consider. So you do have it in an email. If you need another copy of it, we can provide that to you as well.
Thank you.
It's a one-page.
Our legal counsel is going to come back to us with
On a separate night.
Anybody need a break for a laboratory or some water or something? Get back after it? I would like to keep the pace moving here a little bit.
Go ahead.
I'm going to use lavatory. I'll be right back. Okay. If you want to keep going.
2, 3.
No, Mr. Okay, all right.
Let's take a break.
You get that on a May 25th.
Okay. I'll
But
take a
that's
look.
that's the criteria, and that came from New Hampshire Supreme Court decisions, that when you're focusing on this, what's your consideration? You know, it's not, is there an extra 3-point turn? Is there whatever it is? Yep.
I think that
8:28. I'd like to open the public hearing on public hearing for ordinance 2022-194-16, 24, proposal to increase our solid waste fees. Notice of this hearing was made in the May 26th, 2022 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, offices of SAU number 30, Laconia Community Center, and the Laconia Public Library on May 26, 2022. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business. So at 8:28, we open the public hearing. If anyone is here who would like to speak to that, or anyone online, now would be the appropriate time. I'd like to close the public hearing with no one speaking at 8:29 PM. Moving on to item number 13C on our agenda, which is the public hearing resolution 2022-08 relative to making itemized appropriations for city funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and terminating on June 30th, 2023. Notice of this hearing was made available in the May 26, 2022 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, offices of SAU number 30, Laconia Community Center, and the Public Library on May 26, 2022. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business, and we open the public hearing at 8:29 PM. If anyone would like to speak to this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Anyone online would like to raise their hand? Be happy to hear from them as well. You sure we're connected to the internet? Really? Got two. Terrific. Oh, no hands. Okay, we got two people, no hands. All right, seeing that no one had wanted to speak to this matter, we're going to close the public hearing on item number 13C at 8:30 PM. Moving on to item number 15, which is the mayor's report. A couple of things I'd like to cover tonight, and certainly some good stuff, I think, going on in the city. Certainly on Thursday, we opened up the 99th Laconia Motorcycle Rally. We're able to do it in the Ed Engler Auditorium, the Colonial Theater. And in some respects, it's just like I imagined it. A couple of bikes up on the stage, nice crowd of people. The governor was kind enough to join us. And I think it's just, again, one of those times you get to use the theater and think about how great it is just to have it. And once again, appreciating Mayor Engler's vision and his really perseverance in making sure this came to fruition. So it was a terrific day. I was down on the boulevard and on the boardwalk over the course of the weekend, and looks like our crowds are very good. It seems like we have a sense of normalcy coming back, which is nice with lots of people. And I would say to Scott and your team within the city, from the police department and fire department and DPW, things seem to be working really, really well. So nice job there. And I guess the weather's going to be with us for the rest of the week, and let's hope the crowds are as well. But it's really nice to have the motorcycle rally back in, I guess, full swing right now. I did want to draw attention to something that's gone on in our school system, which I think is really great news. And I won't get into too much depth on it because it may take a little extra time. But I will say that Laconia school system and the Office of Extended Learning has been awarded the 21st Century Community Learning Center federal grant, which supports the creation of community learning centers to offer safe, enriching learning environments to students during non-school hours, both before and after school, as well as school breaks and summers. This learning complements and reinforces the regular school day of their academic program with participating students. This is a grant that the city has received since 2002, and it's been level funded. But this year, I think because of the high quality of the grant application, which received the highest ever 99.1% on the grant application, which is key, we have been awarded a grant at 100% of the requested budget, which is $825,000 per year over the next 5 years. Again, that's a credit to Beth Vashon, Extended Learning. She's the one who submitted the grant application. It was clearly off the charts in the charts, and we received a really significant grant. And I think it's just great news for our schools and our students who take advantage of it, and certainly giving us the flexibility to do some really creative things within our city to kids that I think will really appreciate it. So congratulations, Beth. Congratulations to the school system. Congratulations to our Office of Extended Learning. Really well done. Let's see. I also want to mention, I had the opportunity to go to Exeter yesterday and see the Division III boys lacrosse team compete for the state championship, which was it was remarkable in so many respects. I mean, let's call out the boys and their coaching staff and the team and the family supporting them. They won the Division III state title, which is remarkable. But to be in the stands in a sea of red with people from our community bringing their passion, there's no easy way to Exeter from Laconia. It seems like it's close, and it's just not. Well, they brought it down there, and the passion and the energy and the support from the parents and the folks, the adults who are involved in this program, the commitment from these kids as well. It was remarkable. By the end of the first half, I think they were up 8-3, and it looked like they were going to dominate throughout the rest of the game. Hopkinton came out and scored 3 quick goals to make it really close. The next thing you know, it was neck and neck right down to the end. But I think through some real strong discipline and hard work, these boys really held off the attacks that were coming their way. And it was remarkable to see. And it was just a great win. I think we all have a lot to be proud of with this team and sort of the culture of winning that's going on around lacrosse around here. But also it's not all about wins and losses. We know that, but it's about the level of commitment and sportsmanship that these young men on the field displayed. I think that is a real great reflection of our community and a reflection of the coaches and the staff there. I want to just call out, we had a couple of all-state players this season, which was remarkable. First team all-state, Cam Harriman, who is the goalie, who is absolutely terrific. He's electric as far as I'm concerned. Cole Roy in the midfield, Zach Whitney and a midfielder, and Jacob Mello on defense. Second team all-state was Carson Tucker at midfield, Tim Osovich in midfield, Edgar Conroy on defense, and Evan Rollins on attack. We also had honorable mention, Brody Rollins and Evan Kerrigan. So we have some real talent in this community, but we also have some young men and some programs that we can all be really proud of. So it was a real honor and a real privilege, and it was just a heck of a lot of fun to be there yesterday. So hopefully they'll have an opportunity to come in here on the 27th and say hello, and we can acknowledge them. We should also be acknowledging some of our students as well. We do that. I don't know, we haven't done it the past couple of years, but usually we get the list of the top 10.
Yeah, we haven't done that because of COVID the last couple of years. But
So if possible, could you reach out to the school and let them know? I think it'd be nice to, maybe we can do it all on the 27th.
Okay.
And do it right at 7 o'clock and recognize some of the great things going on in our school districts and some great kids. So that being said, I will conclude my remarks. Find my place, and we'll move on to council comments right now. Wow, Councilor Cheney.
What a surprise.
First time tonight.
Yep. I didn't want to disappoint, Mr. Mayor.
You never do.
I just wanted to follow up briefly on the gentleman from Aquamarine. I'd asked the manager I was concerned that there may be statutory requirements for what you can set for speed limits. So I was hoping he'd had a chance, if not, maybe at our next meeting.
I have not, but I can certainly get that between now and then and share it with the council in the interim.
And I want to reiterate what I said earlier. I don't think this is a problem so much about speed limits as it is about enforcement. And our department, I know, will pay attention to that. As I suggested earlier, I'm meeting with the chief later this week, and I certainly will be going over these things with them. But you know, I can appreciate not wanting your kids to get run over. And that's not the kind of street where we ought to have speeding. I think it will help to see what obviously this week, whatever traffic count and whatever speed limits or speed amounts we get are going to be abnormal because of motorcycle week. But we'll go on for another week or two and try and get a better idea of what normal traffic flows are in the summertime. I think that's the most important time to worry about safety on Centenary Ave. The other thing I would mention, he mentioned to me earlier today on the phone that Centenary is a dead end at the moment because the gate's closed. And I said, well, you got the bridge. And he said, no, they filled it with
Porta potties.
I was kind of hoping maybe next year we could find someplace beside the bridge to put some porta potties.
You're looking at me. I had nothing to do with it.
I'm just lucky we got some this year. Okay, so otherwise we're having another carry in, carry out event.
Anyways, thank you.
No, great shirt tonight.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I picked this out of the closet.
Any other comments, council comments? Get Councilor Felch.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the Independence Day Parade. It's coming together good. Anybody that's interested in being in it, groups, businesses, whatever, we're looking to have a good parade this year, culminating at O-Pee-Chee with entertainment and fireworks, etc. And everything this year is on July 3rd. The parade starting at 4:30.
Thank you, Councilor Felch. Thanks for your work on that. Councilor Camel.
Thank you, Mayor.
A nice shirt as well.
Thank you. We all shopped the same store last night.
Don't tell them where we bought it.
I missed the
Big
memo.
Lots. Big Lots, aisle 3. I just want to say that I participated in the Peter Macris ride Saturday, and I've been on quite a few of them now. And I don't know what the official count was, but there had to have been 300 bikes there, maybe more. But it was very well done, as it is every year. The ride was great, and I'm sure the donations were there. You know, people could say what they want about bikers. I've been riding since '72. I've been involved in I don't know how many charities. You know, Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, Ride for Kids for 20 years probably, and you won't find more generous people than bikers for these events. And they show up, they open their wallet, and they participate, and it's just a great thing. So I just wanted to say that, you know, the ride was great. The food was very good too, down at the Nassau as usual. But yeah, I think it all worked out very well.
Thank you.
Councilor Hamel, could you tell us what the event supported and also a little history on Peter Macris?
You asking me questions I probably can't answer. So I know some of the,
I think
you
it's
know, they
Easter
support the
seals.
fire
It's
department.
fire department.
And it's like, well, the chief is here. He could probably say that. And there's probably 3 other charities that they support. And they did give the figure over the years, how much they've given.
Yeah, it was like $500,000 over the years. 16th annual. Peter Macris was one of the owners of the Nassau. And I wasn't actually aware of that. So the Laconia Life Saving Fund, which is the water rescue, Veterans Count, Easter Seals, Laconia CERT, and I might be missing one. So there's a few that they give out over the course of this event. So very successful event every year, and you know, we love being a part of the kickoff for it. So I see you every year.
Thanks,
Chief. Thank you.
All I know is I ended up spending $200 there. But also, Peter Macris rode a Goldwing.
Yeah.
So
That's
there
right.
you go.
Yeah.
And he triked it. So
If I might, Mr. Mayor.
Please do.
Peter Macris, as a former law enforcement officer, I had a lot of dealings with him. He was a lawyer here in the city, and for a number of years, he was the county attorney. He was a force to be reckoned with on both sides of the aisle.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Counselor Susie, you're warming up. Oh, sorry, Counselor Haynes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I echo your comments about Thursday at the Colonial. It was great. I know it's summertime, but winning a state championship is very important. So I don't know if we could get I know it's summertime, but to recognize the team and the players, if we could get them together or however the council could, I think it would be great for them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor Susie.
Yes, totally different subject, but something I think we should address is I come down this area quite a bit and walking around downtown but the gazebo is becoming a significant gathering place that we have to do something about. And again, I'll go back to what Councilor Cheney stated, enforcement. Okay, and maybe it's on the other councilors' minds. I don't know, but they don't, maybe it's not an easy subject, but we need to do something because we're driving people away.
Yeah, and if I could comment to reply on that, I know it has become a priority for the chief of police. Eric Adams reached out to me last week to sit down and to begin some discussions about what to do next. So I think other people are seeing it and wanting to do something.
I mean, I even got a phone call or even want to comment just very recently that there's people giving, bus tickets to come here because of Isaiah.
Yeah.
So we're again, it's back to the situation that you build it and they'll come.
I've heard the same rumor. I don't
know,
know. I don't know the accuracy of it, but
I think we should find out.
and I think that's been part of the questionnaire that the police are using right now. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Scott, but they indicated they were taking some biographical data from folks, a lot of people they hadn't seen before, but they were trying to figure out where they were from, how they got here, how long they planned on staying, things of that nature to find out why are we seeing an influx.
You can't walk down there in that area at all. Okay, it's we put a lot of money in the Rotary Parks, put a lot of money. The mill does very well. It's very poor.
And Councilor Susie, I appreciate your comments. I'm gonna challenge you right now to finish on a high note. Something good in the city right now.
I think it's very good in the city. I think Motorcycle Week is fantastic. Okay. I wish there was a way that we could get the state to share some of the tax revenue they get out of the rooms and meals tax.
Okay, we're going negative again. We're going negative again. That's not gonna happen, but
Tried.
His wife believed him that he was alone in the hotel. That's a positive note.
When I
One
got
step ahead
home,
of
that's the
Cap.
first thing. The chief, the former chief said that, were you alone?
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's all right. Okay, any other council comments? How about committee reports or liaison reports? Anybody have anything this evening? Seeing none, let's move along to number 19, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. If there's a current agenda item you would like to speak to here in the chamber or online, now would be the appropriate time. Online, just raise your hand. And if you're here in the chamber, don't be bashful, step right up. Anybody online? All right, let's move along to item number 20, city manager's report. I'll turn it over to Scott Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I can't top Councilor Susie, so I won't even try, but we'll start with the financial and operational trends report, which is found in your agenda. Top of the page, the first page, you can see the building permit reports. Again, we roll the year over as of April 1st, so we're 2 months in, a little over $11 million in value, down just a touch from the 14 million we were a year ago. But when you compare it to 2 years ago at under 3 million, continues to be a lot of strong building permit activity in the city. And I know Dean mentioned a lot of that when he did his budget presentation a couple of weeks ago. The public assistance data had been up when some of the programs due to the COVID and some of the support money had dried up, but you can also see a big reimbursement that's come in there from some of our various sources. So while we did front some money, we've seen a good return from dollars coming back in to support that. On the second page, the two big items I want to draw your attention to: property tax collection for 2021, over 99.5%, strongest number, going back for at least a decade and probably longer than that. Bottom of the page, motor vehicle registrations. We've got 1 month left in the fiscal year, the month of June. So we should be at around 91.5%, 92% of target. We're at 96.5%. And again, the number is also based on an increase in the revenue estimate. So motor vehicles continue just to be very strong. Now, the other item, we're getting into boat season. So the boat taxes are on the next to last page of the report. I believe it's the 5th page. So you can see about $85,000, pretty much tracking with where we were last year at this time, and no other real changes. So the mayor said something about a basketball game happening at 9. So I'll wrap up my comments and see if anybody has any questions.
Seeing none, we can move along. Thank you very much. Let's move to new business on item 21, which is item 21A, which is a request to discontinue a portion of the public highway known as Weirs Boulevard. Scott, could you take us through that perhaps?
Yes, so this is Weirs Boulevard, just if you're heading towards the Weirs, just before you hit Christmas Island. Resort on the Bay is on your right-hand side when you're on Weirs Boulevard, and you've got the beach area and stuff that they own and is associated with that across the street. So if, and Wes can jump in and get me if I'm wrong here, but this is a request to continue what is declared as a portion of Weirs Boulevard, even though it isn't the road. It's really that little parking area over there. That's part of Weirs Boulevard. And we own the rights to that road on top of it, but we don't own the underlying land underneath. The Tiltons are the only abutters there. The reason they want us to discontinue the portion of that public highway is because they're working with Wes and Krista and our DPW staff, and they want to improve the stormwater and the drainage collection there and how it all flows before it empties back into the lake. And they've got a project that's been engineered and designed, and we've approved of it and are very much supportive of it. And that's why the request is before you tonight. I know Attorney Nix is still in the audience. He is representing the Tiltons on there as well. And if there's anything to add, I'm sure if you've got questions, he's probably in a great position to do that, but that's the background on it.
Thank you. Any questions of the city manager at this point on this? Go right ahead.
All right, so I'm looking at the map. So which portion do you want to discontinue? Is it-
It's not a portion of the road. It's that little triangle, but
Oh,
that
it's
part
not
of
the
that,
road.
nothing to do with the road. It's just the way the road was laid out. It goes over that portion of the property, even though that's not how the road travels or is paved or is used. So there's no change to, when you say discontinue the road, there's no change to anything happening on Weirs Boulevard. Zero impact.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, I realize this isn't a public hearing, but I can add just a little bit of history to it.
No, I don't think so. I don't need to. But I appreciate the offer, though.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So right now, I'd be looking for a motion to move to approve the discontinuance of a portion of the public highway known as Weirs Boulevard as presented. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 21B. Resolution 2022-09 relative to authorizing the expenditure of ARPA funds for capital improvements and acquisition of equipment. In August 2021, the city received funds in the amount of $867,929 under the American Rescue Plan Act. Since then, these funds have been used to replace lost revenue, promote economic activity, and fund drainage projects. Counselor Hamel seeks to allocate funds for certain proposed projects to allow these projects to move forward at this time. These projects were presented on April 11, 2022 by City Manager Scott Myers. These are the Bond Beach Bath and Sewer Improvement Project, acquisition of ambulance equipment, the acquisition of a plotter in the Public Works Department. Total expense for these three projects is $294,015. Right now, we'd be looking for a motion to waive reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Hamel, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. At 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Secondly, we'll be looking to move to approve resolution 2022-09 relative to authorizing the expenditure of ARPA funds for capital improvements and acquisition of equipment as presented. So made by Counselor Hamel, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, That motion passes. Katie, I want to thank you once again for putting the agenda items at the top of this page. Well, keeps me from. Agenda item 21C, request to approve a tentative agreement for the Laconia Professional Firefighters Association, Local 113053, excuse me, of the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO. City Council has been briefed on the terms of the tentative agreement prior to this evening's meeting. We're looking for a motion right now to move that the City Council approve the tentative agreement for the Laconia Professional Firefighters Association, Local 1153 of the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, CLC, for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21D, request to approve a tentative agreement for the Laconia Police Officers Association. City Council has been briefed on the terms of the tentative agreement prior to this evening's meeting. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move the City Council to approve the tentative agreement for the Laconia Police Officers Association for the period from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Susie. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21E. This is Counselor Felch's request that this item be placed on the council's agenda. The request was received from Anthony Santagate to keep the Weirs Beach area open until 2 a.m. for business. At their May 3rd, 2022 meeting, the planning board approved an extension of entertainment hours until 2 a.m. for Fridays, Saturdays, and during special events such as Motorcycle Week, Bike Timber Fest, or similar events. This approval had no effect on the hours for serving alcohol. Under RSA 179:17, the Liquor Commission sets hours for alcohol sales as between the hours of 6 a.m. and 1 a.m. 7 days a week. A licensee may sell alcohol until 2 a.m. if the local legislative body, us, the City Council, adopts an ordinance authorizing such sales. Proposed ordinance 2022-16125 is attached for the council's consideration. First motion we'll be looking for right now is a motion to waive a reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. All those opposed? 1 vote. Did you vote?
I'll vote later down the road here.
Are you voting? I see you're voting in favor of this. So that's 5 votes in the affirmative on the first motion, 1 vote opposed. Okay. The motion passes. Second motion is to move a first reading of ordinance 2022-161-25. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, all opposed, 1 vote opposing. Motion passes. Finally, we're looking to move to schedule a public hearing on June 27th, 2022 during the regular City Council meeting to gather input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion?
Have we,
Go right ahead.
okay. Have we have any input here from the police department?
This is just going to a public hearing.
Yeah, I think we could get that at the public hearing.
Okay.
That's why I wanted a public hearing, to get more input.
I support a public hearing.
I support a public, no one asked me. I don't vote, never mind.
I'll mention to the chief that we'd like him to.
Thank you.
Okay, go right ahead. Counselor.
I am in favor of a public hearing, but I just want my fellow councilors to know that I have a problem with this.
I agree. I agree with you.
Okay.
Let it go to a public hearing, see what the public has to say.
Right.
I have one other request. Can we get a calendar of what days during the summer wouldn't be to 2 a.m.? I'm just
We can work on that and put you, I think the intent was to do it during motorcycle week,
Yeah, I get the.
the Friday, the Saturday and the other events. So I
I
think
just wanna
it's
see on
the
the
other,
calendar
the
how
other
many-
events. Okay, we can, yep.
For the benefit of the public to see.
Like
when it's
Council
happening.
Lippman raises some questions because there's November Fest, October Fest, whatever fest, and Lord only knows what's going to continue. So
And
Let's hear
again,
from the public.
and again, this is not property specific. This is for the area of the Weirs and the Weirs Beach licensees. Okay, we can do that for you. Absolutely.
Fair enough. The motion on the table, please indicate if there's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion on the table, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Moving on to item number 21F, which is the request to de-designate a portion of the Scenic Byway route in the city of Laconia. Scott, could you lead us through this briefly?
Thank you. So we received correspondence, which you were copied on from Mr. O'Leary, who owns Witch's Brew pub located the craft beer exchange down in the Weirs on Doe Avenue. And he had signage out on Route 3. And the state Department of Transportation was going out and doing one of their annual surveys of signage and making sure what was there was supposed to be there and not in the state right of way. And where he doesn't own frontage, he received a letter saying that he couldn't have his sign there, even though he may have had permission from the property owner to place it there. And the reason behind it wasn't the state trying to be difficult, is that area of Laconia is designated a scenic byway, and there's additional layers of regulation and rules on what was designated as a scenic byway somewhere back in the days. So upon further review, if you turn to the second page of your background and you look at the blue lines, most of them through Alton, Guilford, Meredith, Center Harbor, Moultonborough, Tuftonboro, there you see that blue is the scenic byway. It's really the corridor right along the lake. In Laconia, and again, I'm not sure what year this happened, but it had to be approved by the city council. We have a designation of a scenic byway from the intersection at Main Street here at Court and Union, straight up through the downtown, all the way to the Meredith line. And it also goes down Roller Coaster Road until it picks up Route 3 in the Weirs. We also have a scenic byway that starts at Union Avenue, again, right here, and runs the entire length of Union Avenue to McIntyre Circle, down Weirs Boulevard, into the Weirs, up Route 3 to the Meredith line, and also picks up Lakeside Ave and Scenic and comes up to the intersection by a roller coaster. And the only reason I can think is you probably have some peekaboo views of water along Union Ave, whether it's the river, whether it's Opeechee, whether it's Paugus Bay, and that's the designation. So in looking at that, it seems not to be user and business friendly with an extra layer of bureaucracy and signage. So if you flip to the last page, the recommendation is basically in the yellow to de-designate anything that's in yellow. And what our proposal is that the more rural rustic areas is basically from Lexington Avenue out Parade Road to the Meredith Town Line and picking up Roller Coaster Road from Parade Road to Route 3 in the Weirs, and de-designate the other more commercial areas, which, you know, you've got Canton signs, you've got Fun Spot signs, you've got McDonald's signs. I mean, and try to be a little bit more user-friendly for our businesses in the community.
Councilor Lippman.
I'd like some research done on the designation, because I suspect that there was a tourism interest. We should research with the Chamber of Commerce what the history of that is. Because I can see what you're saying, but I can also see a counterpoint, which is there may be some tourist information which encourages people to come to the downtown of Laconia, to go along Union Avenue and so I guess before making a rash decision, I'd like us to get a little more information on it.
Happy to do that.
There's too many things that we, like 35 years ago.
So what would be the next step? Would this be a motion to table and a request for you to maybe dig up some?
It'd be a motion on the table. I will just share that DOT said they were amenable to this, and I know that's a different question than what Council Lippman is raising, and they want to work with the property owner, Witch's Brew, to rectify a situation. Just the further we do delay this, causes him to be in a little bit of limbo with his signage there, and just, but not that 2 weeks, I think, would be a deal breaker on this, but I'm just sharing that with you.
Councilor Susie.
Do we have a signage ordinance?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that up as part of the same thing to make sure that everybody's adhering to the ordinance. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
We
I
spent a
just
lot of
don't,
time on
I,
that one.
what's
We
that?
would have had to go through.
We
the
spent a
planning
lot of
board for
time,
that
yeah.
sign Anyway, right, Scott?
Signs were to needed approval through, yes, through planning.
See nothing but billboards.
Ones he's got now.
So
I guess I can't speak 100% to whether he did or not, but certainly if I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
We ought
So-
to check into that.
But typically people put in an application for the sign, it's reviewed, they pay a fee, they know what the parameters are for what they can put on there from us. I don't think anybody in the city knew that this was a designated scenic byway, because it's one of those things that even though it conforms with us, it didn't conform with the state because the state's the one who oversees that particular program.
Oh, I guess what I'm saying is, if we take away that scenic portion of it and the DOT says it's okay for a sign, I want to make sure the sign's been approved through the city.
Absolutely.
That's right where I was. Thank you.
So Council Whitman, any motion to table?
I make the motion. to-
Is there a second? Second by Councilor Felch.
Thank you, Council.
Item to debate. All those in favor? Please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Moving on to unfinished business under 22A. Sir, petition to lay out a class 5 highway at Cottonwood Avenue, subject to public hearing tonight. Motion to table, Counselor Susie. Yes. Seconded by Counselor Haynes. There'll be no discussion. All those in favor of the motion to table, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 22B. Easy. Okay, item number 22B, which is on ordinance 2022-194-16, 24, proposal to increase our solid waste fees. City Council meeting of May 23rd, 2022, the council approved the first reading of ordinance 2022-194-16, 24, and scheduled a public hearing for June 13th, 2022. That hearing was held this evening, and there was no public input on this. So right now, I'll be looking for a motion to waive a reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that passes. Secondly, we'll be looking for a motion to approve a second reading of ordinance 2022-194-16, 24, proposal to increase solid waste fees. So made by Councilor Phelps, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Is there further discussion on the motion on the table? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Finally, looking to move to approve ordinance 2022-194-16, 24, proposal to increase solid waste fees with the increase to take effect on July 1st, 2022. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes.
Raise them enough.
Tax and spend. Tax and spend. You guys are all the same. Actually, I'd like to adjourn. I'd like to adjourn the meeting. I can't help it, show your colors. I want to adjourn the city council meeting of June 13th, 2022 at 9:07 PM. Thank you, everybody. Katie, thank you.